Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back. I'm the Tilted Crown Gourmet. Now there is nothing better than homemade sourdough bread. Either that nice golden crust or that nice open crumb. You can serve it with butter, or you might want to do my clam chowder that's going to be featured as well. So if you're an experienced baker or if you are new to sourdough, this is going to be the video for you. If you're ready, let's roll up those sleeves, let's get some prep done, and let's get cooking. I've been invited to do a video for December, so I'm going to be doing crab Rangoon. I decided I'm going to also go ahead and make a video on making sourdough bread because I believe that fresh homemade sourdough bread goes amazingly well with crab Rangoon. So these are my steps in making sourdough bread. So to get started, I've pre-measured everything, and my fabulous editor will be putting the amounts up on the screen. So I have my bread flour, I have my wheat flour, and I have water. So to my bread flour, I'm going to be adding my wheat flour. I'm going to give it a quick little stir. Now to that, I'm going to be adding my water. Give everything a good mix. Now the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to allow this to sit for about 2 hours, because what I'm trying to do is I want to hydrate my flour. Now I'm just going to cover this up with a towel. However, you could definitely use some cling film, and we'll come back in 2 hours. Our 2 hours has passed, and you see the dough really kind of looks the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it over here on my scale, turn it on, and because I've added my bowl prior to turning my scale on, it automatically zeros. Now this is my starter, which I fed, so kind of made a bit of like a Levant. So I'm going to be adding, and you see it's like nice and bubbly and it's ready to do its thing. So I'm going to be adding 70 grams to my flour, my hydrated flour. Now we're going to get our salt, get some wet fingers, and we're going to bring it up and over. Mix in that Levant into our flour. So what I'm doing is I'm starting to develop some gluten, which of course is going to give you those nice crust and the nice crumb on the inside. So I want to do this until the dough starts to resist the pull. And remember, this is only our first part of working our dough. Now what I do is just try to bring it up into a little bit of a ball, and then we are going to let that sit. We're going to cover it up and let that sit for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, let's dampen our fingers. Gonna get this, pull it over. Get this, pull it over, and keep doing that. You see it's starting to kind of resist that pull. Now want to try to get underneath it. Now try to get it into a bit of a ball. Now we'll cover for another 15 minutes. Alright, our 15 minutes has elapsed, and this is how it's looking. Go ahead and get those fingers wet. Pull over, pull over, pull over, pull over, pull over, pull over. Remember, the purpose of all of this manipulation is to create that beautiful crumb structure when we're done. Remember, try to get us a nice tight skin on the top. Cover it up and let it sit for 15 more minutes. So that 15 minutes is up. So this is going to be our last time doing this. Pull, pull. It's already starting to resist my pulling. Remember, we want that beautiful rise and crumb structure. Okay, so now we're going to cover this for 30 minutes. So that 30 minutes is up. Going to uncover. So our next step is going to be done on the bench. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little water, just dampening it just a little bit. Then I'm going to take our dough and we're going to bring that off onto our bench. Now what I want to do, I'm going to get my hands a little damp, not wet, just damp, and I want to get underneath and I want to stretch this out. Now the further you can stretch it, the better, but this is only our first one. So now we're gonna fold this over, fold that one over, a little bit more dampness. We're gonna fold this up, and then we're gonna get our thumbs and we're going to get this and roll it over like that. Now we want to get this and we want to bring it into a ball. Because what I want to do is I want to try to a little sticky. It's okay. Because we want this to go back into a little bit of a ball. And if necessary, we can do it with our hands, sticking a little bit. So what we do is, as it's sticking to the counter, we want it to stretch a little bit to get that top skin to tighten up. So now that we have that, I'm going to get it and put it back into our bowl, and we're going to cover that back up for 30 minutes. So our next 30 minutes is up. This is what it looks like. Again, I want to put a little bit of water on my counter. Get our dough. So you see, I'm trying to allow the counter to help me get that nice and tight. Then I'm gonna spin. I wasn't having much luck with my bench scraper earlier. It was really sticking, so I'm just gonna tuck and spin with my hands. And again, letting the counter pull that nice and taut. And now that I have it back into my basic ball, I'm gonna get my scraper here underneath, back in our bowl, and we're gonna cover for 30 more minutes. All right, that 30 minutes is done, and we are going to do another shaping. Remember, we're utilizing a lot of wheat flour. It's about 36-37%, which is a little bit harder to work with traditionally. However, because we're doing so many folds and we're handling the dough a lot, I believe that it gives us a superior end product, and because of the wheat, it's a lot more nutritious. So it's definitely worth the extra work. So we're going to, again, dampen our counter a little bit, get those hand stamped, and we're gonna get our dough, place it back onto our counter. This is our 6th fold, so this is our final fold before we're gonna let this proof for 4 hours. So again, fold over, fold back, pull, let the counter do some of the work, pull. I want to try to get that nice tight skin on the top. Let the counter do some of the work. Okay, now back in our bowl. This time we're going to cover this, let it sit on the counter for 4 hours. Remember, this step is called the bulk ferment, and how long it takes really is going to be dependent upon the temperature of your kitchen. So our proofing time is up, and this is what it looks like. So now we're going to turn this out onto our work surface. Now we're going to be doing the same fold, but this could be a little bit more difficult because it's a little bit more fluid. But if any of the dough kind of breaks off, it's okay. I want you to be gentle with it, not to try to deflate it too much, but don't be too worried about it. But then we want to do our pre-shape. Again, we really want to try to get that skin to be tight. And a lot of people do use the bench scraper for this part. I tend to use my hands because it doesn't stick. Now that we have it back into a bit of a ball, go ahead and sprinkle it with a little bit of flour. And it's gonna spread, but we're gonna wait for 30 minutes before we do our final shaping. So we're gonna set our timer for 30 minutes and we're gonna come back. So our 30 minutes is up. So let's go ahead and put a little bit of flour around, because we are gonna be flipping this over and we're not using any more water. So we have our dough, and we're gonna get this and flip it over. And at this point, I want to get some flour on my hands, and we're gonna do our last tri-fold. So again, like I said, be gentle, try not to deflate it too much, but don't worry about it too much. And up and over and here, because we're going to be doing our final shaping. So we want to get this, because we want a nice taut skinned. So we have our Benetton here, and I have dusted it with bread flour. So what I'm going to do is get our dough, go underneath, bring it onto my hand, gently lower it in, and then now we're going to do stitching. So up and over, because what we're trying to do, we're trying to make the skin nice and tight. So this process, if I didn't say it earlier, is called stitching. Now we want to get some, this is rice flour, and sprinkle it, and I actually will even use what I had on the bench. Sprinkle it, because as this rests in the refrigerator, this will kind of spread out, and we don't want it to stick to our Benetton. And then now we're going to cover this up. We're going to cover this, and we're going to let it sit for 14 hours, and then we'll bring it out and we'll finish it up. We're on the next day, and prior to baking our sourdough, we want to preheat our oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit or 260 degrees centigrade. We will insert our Dutch oven or whatever dish you're going to be baking your sourdough in into the oven and let it sit in the oven at 500 degrees for 1 hour. So after your Dutch oven has heated for an hour, we want to get our dough out of the refrigerator, and we want to unwrap it. And some people do the push test, so they'll push in to see if it pops back, and you see how that's popping back. But we're utilizing time. So if we get our Benetton, put our parchment, try to center it, put our hand underneath, flip it over, ease it down onto our worktop, and then we want to pull off our Benetton, get our razor, and we want to score that around. And then if you want, you could do like some little designs, but that's 100% up to you. Now, what we want to do is we want to bring out our Dutch oven, which has been heating for an hour. Take our bread, carefully lower it into our Dutch oven, and then to get that oven spring, I put ice cubes, an ice cube on either side, and then I quickly close that back up, and it goes back into the oven. And that's our 500 degree oven or 260 centigrade for 20 minutes. So we're gonna set our timer for 20 minutes. So our 20 minutes has elapsed. Turn our timer off, go in, and we want to pop our lid off and set it here. And then we are going to put our bread back in, close it. We're going to change our temperature to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 232 degrees centigrade, and we are going to bake for an additional 35 minutes. So our 35 minutes is up. Open up our oven. That's what our bread looks like. So this is what our sourdough bread looks like. It's fresh out of the oven. Now it's important that we want to allow this to sit for 1 hour, at least 1 hour. The reason you want it to sit for an hour, you want to make sure that it's completely cool, because if you were to cut into this fresh loaf of bread, you would release all the steam, thereby you would end up with a dry loaf of sourdough bread. So definitely let it sit, let it rest for at least an hour, because you want to make sure that it is completely cool, and that you don't release any of that wonderful moisture out of our sourdough bread. Now, of course, you know the proof is going to be when we cut it open, because sourdough is kind of like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're gonna get. I'm back. Our bread has had an opportunity to rest and cool down. And like I said before, when you make sourdough bread, it's kind of like when you cut into it, it's kind of like having that box of chocolate and you just don't quite know what you're gonna get. Nevertheless, let's cut into this and see how we did. The bread looks fabulous. Let's cut into it. Ooh, that crust sounds lovely. Well, I didn't quite get the crumb that I wanted, but I did use a lot of wheat, but it still is looking pretty good. And we're gonna give this a taste. Cut us off a piece. Crust sounds amazing. Look at that. That looks really good. Get us some butter. That's really good. Very soft. That's really lovely. Well, the bread is very soft and quite delicious. Hopefully you will give this a chance. Hopefully you'll give it a try. And I want to thank you again for tuning in to me, the Tilted Crown Gourmet.
Remember, your kitchen is your passport to the world, allowing you to explore diverse cultures and cuisines right from home as you explore new flavors and techniques. And as always, bon appetit.